Everything you desire is waiting for you to claim it. There's no creating involved, only invention through imagination and building through action. You are at the center of all your desires, dreams, and achievements. Welcome to Designing Your Life Today, the podcast that's all about your success, achieving your goals, building wealth through your business, and building your most passionate, powerful, magnificent life. Discover ways to use your purpose to connect you to serving others and living your dreams. I am Pat Council, and I know you are built by design to win. And it all begins with knowing how to tap into your success energy. Let's get on the path of discovery, decisive action, development, and unwavering dedication to your life's calling. It's time to embark on a transformative journey where your deepest passions become your most rewarding achievements. Embrace your power to shape your destiny, because this is your moment to do life with power. Hello, Power Up Nation. I'm Pat Council, and this is one of my special segments called Another Perspective. You know, in life, there is always another side to things. There's always another way that we can look at things, and we look at them in a way such that it will take us where we desire to go and let us end up where we desire to be. So with that being said, I want to talk about the fact that instead of fighting for equality in this day and time, it is important to press towards excellence. And you said, well, you know what? Does that really make sense? Sometimes people won't let you move forward no matter how good you are at something. Well, I'm here to tell you that if you go for excellence and you do it without excuses, no one can stop you. Now, it might be one particular person that might try and stop you from winning or crossing whatever finish line that you decided you wanted to cross in life. But there's always going to be, I'm going to say 2, 3, 4, 5 more that will let you into the game, so to speak, or that will help you get into the game so that you can win. I wanted to talk about this because sometimes when I go on YouTube or if I see a little clip, I don't watch the news, but some clips, I'll kind of watch the, if I'm on Microsoft Edge, I'll see a little clip and okay, I'm tempted and I click on it. And usually I can't get through the whole thing because I go, okay, that's just ridiculous. When you are trying to measure up to someone else's opinion of you and you're doing your best to measure up to, let's say, someone who you view as being superior to you, you are automatically inferior. The object of the game is not to focus on that person. There is no one for you to work to be better than other than the person you see in the mirror. Your job is to give it your best, to be your best, so that you can walk in your purpose and accomplish that purpose with excellence. So what I want to share is, what does it take to even get to that point or to be that person that you desire to be? Not the person who's looking at someone else and you're being jealous, or you're saying rude things behind their backs, or you're complaining about that person because you don't think that you measure up. Now, I can tell you, been there, done that. Not where I've said rude things behind people's back, because that's kind of not my style. If I have something to say, I'm going to say it. But I also feel like it's not my place to just insult a person just because I decide that I want to be rude. That's not what this is about. What I'm saying is if I have something to contribute to a situation, I'm going to contribute if it's going to make that situation better. So with that being said, when I see all these different things on YouTube where people are fighting for equality, people are fighting to prove that they're right and the other person is wrong. We've got politicians that fight against each other. We've got Republican versus Democrat. We've got different races, black versus white. And it's not just black versus white anymore. There's so many different ethnic groups that are fighting against one another, and they all think that they have to fight over this piece of the pie. Well, first of all, in the Bible, one of the things that Jesus pointed out to people is that, you know what, if, compared to the birds of the air or the lilies of the field, that we shouldn't worry about what we're going to eat and not having enough, because if God takes care of them, he will surely take care of us. So what is that to me? What I'm saying is that instead of trying to fight because you think there isn't going to be enough and you think someone is going to take something from you, then I think it's important that you understand that if you do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, if you learn what you're supposed to learn when you're supposed to learn it, and even if you miss learning it when you were supposed to learn it, and you're still here, you still have the opportunity to learn something that will take you where you desire to be. It is so important that we pay more attention to what it means to commit to excellence as it relates to us in terms of our purpose, in terms of our calling. What is it are you really good at? And you say, well, I don't know the thing that I do well. I don't know. Well, if you don't know the thing that you do well, what is the thing that you would like to do well? Instead of looking at someone else and comparing yourself to other people. Now, I've got to throw a caveat in here. When I talk about the fact that, there isn't enough and we're fighting over that, that does not include illegal immigrants. I am a firm believer that anyone in this country, there are rules and there are laws, and we should know who's coming into this country. The same way, if someone's going to come into your house, you're not just going to let a stranger come into your house just because they snuck in. I mean, if a burglar is coming in, well, let's take the burglary out of it. If someone's coming into your house and they're a complete stranger because you left a black back door open or your screen door open, and they just say, oh, this looked like a place I thought I'd come in and just sit down and go in your refrigerator and just take things. You're not going to be okay with that. So you guys get my point. So when I talk about the fact that there is enough and God has given us has made enough for every single person, the only way for you to get that, to get enough and to get the things that you desire is for you to do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. It's as simple as that. There are very clear spiritual laws that are connected to the universal laws. And if we follow them, it will work out. And you say, well, how do you know that, Pat? Because been there, done that. Okay. I have been in positions where I didn't think I would have enough, but I did what I was supposed to do. In other words, I went to work. I learned, I spent time. And sometimes while and it's okay what my friends decided to do for their lives, but I decided to do something different. My friends at that time, while they wanted to go and kind of hang out on Friday nights, I was actually in my office working and learning my craft. So the point that I'm making is that instead of fighting for equality, why don't you fight to become excellent, the most excellent person that you can be? Now, this isn't about perfection. Excellence says that you will work consistently to reach the highest standards based on, let's say, perhaps your calling, based on, let's say, the laws of the land. And I want to say spiritual laws of the land. Okay, so this is what excellence is about. I'm always amazed when people are angry with other people who are excelling. But the ones who are angry because they didn't do their best. It's not because they couldn't do their best. See, because when you give your best, and I think each person's best, it's not always the same. But I think when you give your best, you're going to get the best that works for your life your calling, your purpose, and that works for who you are. And I think you'll be what I call, I guess, content with that. Okay. You'll be satisfied, but you won't settle. In other words, you said, okay, I've reached this level. Because think about this. Each time you reach a certain level, all of a sudden you find yourself wanting to do something more. Not necessarily wanting more. You may want more. That's okay. You may want more money, more material things, a finer life or whatever. That's fine. But the point that I'm making is at the end of the day, you find yourself wanting to learn more because you now realize what you're capable of. So I think instead of fighting for equality against another human being, I think as each individual, we should recognize the power that we've been given. Okay, God, he made us in his image. And I know I say that quite often on this podcast, but it's true. We're made in his image. So what does that mean? That means that I don't have to look at someone else and wish I was them. I have to look in the mirror and embrace me and go, wow, you know what? Hey, we are not where we want to be, but we're not where we used to be. And we're working on it. And you're doing so great. And you don't have a point to prove to anyone. So what made me want to talk about this was everybody's making a big deal about what is it? Michael B. Jordan winning the Oscar. And they made it a race thing. I'll be honest with you guys. I find that fighting with, let's say, the committee, the committee for the Oscars, I find that fighting with them and complaining about race and saying, oh, let me in and give me an Oscar because you need more diversity. And you win. And I'm not saying this is why he won because I don't know. I didn't watch the movie Sinners and I have no intention of watching it. So, but I don't think that anyone should ever win based on race. I think we should win based on excellence. In other words, write a good script. Write a really good script that engages lots of people. Okay. And now, and here's the caveat. Each person's idea, it's different as to what we think is excellent. Some people think, okay, let's just, make a movie where we blow some things up and that's good. That's excellent. You should win an Oscar because you blew some things up. I can't say whether you should or shouldn't. However, the other side to that is, all right, I am going to say it a little bit. I think that there has to be an art to anything that's written. Okay, so that is a part of, or one of my gifts. I love to write, and I studied it while I was in the military. I had the opportunity to study overseas with some English professors, and I mean English in terms of people from the UK, United Kingdom. And I learned a lot. These were phenomenal professors. And I learned a lot about art and insight and when you're putting something together. So I'm saying all of that to say, when you find yourself fighting over something because of race, because of gender, or something like that, then you're fighting, you're saying, hey, I need to prove that I'm worthy because I automatically think that you guys are in control of how high I go. You guys, meaning whoever the other people at the so-called top of the person you view as being at the top, you guys are in charge of my life. You're in charge of my thinking. You're in charge of how well I prove myself to be because I need you to give me this award. No, you don't. So I'm saying all of that to say it made me think, why is this such an issue? Why is this constantly a conversation? Oh, the first Black or the first Hispanic. I'm the first one to win this award. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not, and he's Michael B. Jordan, by the way, he's not first, but I'm just talking, generally that phrase. I'm the first one, to go to college. Okay, because what? Someone changed a rule and allowed you to go. Now, it probably sounds like I'm making light of these things. What I'm saying is stop using other people as your measuring stick. That's what I'm saying. So I'm going to share, and then we're going to wrap up. I'm going to share 4 things that you can do when it comes to your own life so that you can get what you desire, so that you can feel comfortable. Because I've had the great opportunity to meet people who excelled in life and they were still not happy. And they were still talking or speaking in the same manner as they spoke when they didn't have anything. They had the same amount of anger. They had the same amount of disdain for people. Okay. Because no matter what, they didn't feel accepted. So I'm saying all of that instead of fighting for that, and I should probably call this podcast, instead of fighting for acceptance, you should, fight for your own excellence. And you're not fighting against anyone except yourself. I think that's what I will call it. But the point that I'm making is that that's really what it's about. Okay. You don't have to be accepted, by anyone, because do you know what? The people who've had the greatest influence and made the greatest impact throughout their lives are people who were courageous enough to be who God designed them to be, to step into their calling. I mean, think about a guy like Stephen Hawking when he was alive. And he was afflicted with a disease, and he was in the wheelchair, and so slightly deformed and that kind of thing. But you know what? Still well respected. Why? Because he continued in his calling. Okay, he didn't go, wow, you know what? I don't look like the other scientists who are geniuses. I don't look like them. He did his thing, and he was respected. So this is what it's about, you guys. So when we talk about another perspective, I think it's time that instead of us looking at a group of people or any person and making them your measuring stick, so that you can either measure up and feel like you are accepted, or making them your measuring stick so that you can measure up and they let you into their club kind of thing. I think perhaps we should try to do something a little bit different. This is just my opinion. I think if you focus purely on excellence and giving it your best, that doesn't mean you're not going to fall down a few times and make some mistakes. That it doesn't mean that. I think the object of the game, though, is to, as Paul says, to press toward the mark. Press toward the mark. And pressing toward the mark does not imply that you have to get it right all the time. It doesn't imply that you can't make a mistake. It doesn't imply that you can't even, let's say, fall down a few times in terms and fall from grace for a minute or two. It doesn't imply that. It says press toward the mark. So that means that no matter what happens, you're going to get up. You're going to get back in the game. So with that being said, I want to share these 4 things with you. And then I want to suggest that you spend some time with you and make some decisions about you, not compared to someone else, not looking at someone else and wishing. Don't get me wrong. There are people who are great examples, and there are people who've been in my life. They were great examples of what's possible, but I never wanted to be like them. Never. I only wanted to be like me, because I couldn't think of a better person to be. Why? Because I don't know how to be anybody else. So I want to encourage you to spend some time. So with that being said, here are 4 steps that I suggest to anyone that asks me, and I've had people ask me sometimes periodically, so what do you think I should do? What do you think I should be? And I don't have the answer to that for them. I can only tell them what I see in terms of a kind of gift or talent that kind of jumps out at me. But the first thing is you get to decide. So first, think of who you want to become. Who do you want? What do you want your life to be about? What do you want your life to represent? All right. So write that down. And secondly, well, that is the second thing. Then write it down. Okay. The Bible tells us to write the vision and make it plain. So write it down. Then the third thing, and this is the part that I think people have a challenge with, is who do you need to become, or what habits do you need to adopt so that you can become this person you desire to be. You don't have to look at someone on television or look at someone on YouTube who's so-called famous and want to be like them. You don't have to look at a person who has a lollipop bigger than yours and you want a lollipop just as big. Okay, you can have a lollipop that's just as big or bigger by being who it is you were designed to be. So the third one is, who do you need to become and what habits do you need to adopt so that you can become that person that you desire to be? And here's the fourth one. And this is one that calls for honesty. And we're going to start to wrap up here. This is the one that calls for honesty. And this one is about the fact that once you've decided, this is what I want my life to look like, this is who I want to be, and you've written it down and you know the habits that you need to adopt, then the question that you need to ask yourself, is this person that I want to become, first of all? And this is the main question. Well, let me give you the main question. Is it important enough to me for me to want to make these changes? There is a myth that when people tell you to be yourself, what they're saying is you don't have to pretend to be someone so that you can fit in. But a lot of times people think that means to settle. And you just say, well, this is who I am and I don't have to change. You know what? If you're going to become the person that you're happy with, that you respect, that you are excited about, then yeah, it may require some changes. Sometimes we were taught some things growing up that were not really supposed to be a part of our lives or a part of our success journey. So you have to make that decision and you have to be honest with yourself about these things. See, this is why you don't want to waste your time fighting for, I guess, equality or fighting for acceptance. And as opposed to, if you're going to fight for something, fight to be your most excellent. So I want to wrap up by reminding you to put your attention on the life that you think you deserve. Know why you're here and what you want to do with your life. That's what's most important. And that's really what it's all about, you guys. Everything else is just noise. When you watch something on the news and you're giving an opinion and all of that, this is just noise. Unless you're watching and you're seeing these challenges and you feel like you're called to provide a solution to some of the many challenges that kind of go on in life. Other than that, it's just noise for you. It is about you really connecting with you. It's really difficult for you to find, I guess, as they call it, your tribe, and be successful with that tribe without you knowing who you are. And you get to decide who you want to become. Now, here's my other caveat. I'm not talking about you get to changing your gender or calling yourself a boy if you were born a female, a girl. So I'm not talking about that, and we're not going down that road. But what I'm saying is this is about purpose. This is about calling. This is about why are you here? And this is about where can you serve? Okay, that's what it's about. And this is about once you understand all of that, how can you become your best at this, whatever this is, and you fill in that blank. So with that being said, that is all I have for you. I wanted to give another perspective on that because and it's funny, I've thought about this probably, I don't know, it's probably been more than 30 years. I've never, ever wanted people to let me in just because I don't know, I'm trying to prove that I'm as good as them. I've never wanted that. Were there some things I wanted to be a part of? Yes. But if someone said no, it's like, fine, I'll build my own. That's always kind of been my philosophy, is I'll just do my own thing and I'll get my own group, because that's a strong indication that was not, my tribe, as it's called. That's not my group. That's not the group I'm supposed to be a part of. And forcing my way into that group, it's just an egotistical thing. It's an ego, my ego saying, see, we made them bend to our will, or made them bend to let us in. And so, because I could be the first. Listen, that's not what life is about. Life is about you, as I said, going towards excellence and positioning yourself so that you can operate fully in your purpose. I don't think there's any more satisfying life than that. And I find that when people, and I had a mentor like that, he did what he was called to do. And I found him to be one of the most peaceful, one of the most honorable, and one of the wisest men I'd ever met in my entire life. And when I say men, that I'd ever met in my entire life, that includes the men in my own family. And that's not disrespecting them. It's just truth. I saw someone who didn't feel like they had to measure up, but at the same time, he was invited to be a part of everything, and people wanted to be in his space. So I think I made my point in terms of practicing acceptance. So we're going to call this podcast, instead of fighting for acceptance, fight for excellence, or fight towards excellence. So I think we're going to call it something like that. But it's the same thing. If you're fighting for a type of equality, and one last caveat, when I say fighting for equality, I'm not talking about someone disrespecting you to the point where you can't function, where you can't be a quality citizen in society. That's something very different. But here's the thing, even when that happens, if you go towards excellence, you still win. You will still win. And I could give you lots of examples of that. And I said we were going to wrap up, but just to prove my point, when women couldn't vote at one point in time, women saw themselves not as inferior. They saw themselves as deserving of the same rights. So what do you think they did? Okay, they worked until they got those rights. Okay, the right to vote. When we talk about color, if you talk about race, and a lot of times we talk about Madam C.J. Walker. Madam C.J. Walker was the first female millionaire. Okay, notice I didn't say black female. Okay, first female millionaire, as it's written according to my studies. So the point that I'm making is she became a millionaire in the early 1900s, around 1917 or 18 or somewhere in there. So this was during a time when there was supposedly no equal rights for blacks, and especially black women. So the point that I'm making is she still became a multi-millionaire, and she did a lot of great things to help people with that money. So there are no excuses. If you waste your time trying to measure up to someone else, that is a waste of time. I can imagine that she didn't waste her time trying to measure up to someone else. She claimed a right that was hers, and it was her right to earn money. The same thing with women who got the right to vote. They claimed that right. Okay. But they got this by doing the right thing. Putting in the work, committing to excellence, doing whatever it took. So I could go on, but I think you guys get the point. So remember that instead of fighting, because we're in a time now, and I think about this, and I said, why are people, especially people who are much, much younger, in their 20s, I'm like, why are they fighting to be liked by someone, or to prove that they're equal to someone? And I thought, okay, they don't have to do that. You don't have to prove that you're something more than someone else. You only have to prove that you're the best that God made you to be. And when you've done that, I think you've done enough. So that's all I have for you guys on Another Perspective. In the meantime, I want you guys to remember to do life with power, knowing that you're built by design to win. Remember to check the show notes. The online course thing that I've been talking about over and over, there's a link to that. And it was a freebie involved in that. And I think that freebie ends March 31st. Okay, I don't think I know. So it ends the end of this month. So you at least want to check it out. It doesn't cost you anything if you're interested in teaching and sharing your information online. With that being said, once again, you guys, I want you to do life with power, knowing that you're built by design to win.